Are we ready? Okay, hi. Good evening. My name is Todd Lefkow, and I'm honored to serve as chairperson of East-West Connections. I wish to thank our co-sponsors for tonight's program, Global Minnesota, the Museum of Russian Art, the Russian Department of Macalester College in Zerkalo, the Russian Press, and a special thanks to Sophia Shamal and to Catherine Galligan, whose technical assistance basically provided our base for this program. We have upcoming programs which will be announced on Kazakhstan and Central Asia with the leading management university of Almaty, Kazakhstan, and on April 6th on the new movie, R, based on Gogol's The Inspector General at the Tylon Theater in Minneapolis, with the art scene production based in Europe, as well as the next in our series. The video and our groundbreaking Vysotsky Dylan discussions and concerts will be distributed internationally in the coming weeks. This is the third of our series on Minnesota's influence in international affairs. Tonight, we're focused on the businesses and economic impact of the world. We have many outstanding Minnesota businesses, but have selected three great firms, not simply because of their economic leadership, but because of their wisdom as global Minnesota corporate members. I want to introduce our friend, Steve Rydell, to speak about the corporate membership program. Stephen, please.
Well, thank you, Todd. First, I want to congratulate you and your organization for organizing an event that celebrates some successful companies in Minnesota's international business scene. And I'm especially fond of all three of these companies tonight. And so for those listening, I asked Todd for permission to say something very brief about each of these companies. Number one, I'm proud that they're members of my organization, Global Minnesota. They're all corporate members, but I've known them for a few more years through my previous work doing trade promotion with the state of Minnesota. So first, I just want to comment on Kent and Eastview. His company has got a great story to tell. His company is just loaded with foreign affairs experts and foreign language speakers. And it's honestly, it's a great place to work, and it's under the radar. So I'm pleased, Kent, that we'll have an opportunity to tell a new audience about your company. So welcome tonight. Secondly, I want to say something about Uponor, another company that deserves to be much better known here in Minnesota. They are a Finnish-owned company with their North American headquarters right here in Apple Valley, Minnesota. Last year, the Finnish ambassador to the U.S. was in Minnesota, and Global Minnesota worked with the CEO of Uponor to host a business reception right at the time that Finland was joining NATO, a very high-profile time for Finland's relationship with the United States, and it's been just great having Uponor as a corporate member as well. So, John, we haven't met yet, but I hope we get a chance to get to know each other. So welcome to you tonight as well. And finally, Harmony Enterprises down in Harmony, Minnesota, stone's throw from the Iowa border. They also have a fabulous story to tell. Small company, small town that grew into a global leader in their own category. And then they reached out to the rest of the world. And I haven't heard the latest number. I'm sure Lane will share it tonight, that they have sold recycling equipment in around 85 countries. So if there is another small Minnesota company that has sold to that many markets, please tell me about them. I'm pretty sure they're in first place in that particular category. So thrilled to have a genuine leader in the small company category that has succeeded in international business as much as they have. So I will pause there because I'm very eager to hear all of these stories tonight. So Todd, thank you for allowing me to insert myself into your program tonight.
Thanks, Steve. Now it's my pleasure to introduce one of the best humans in the state of Minnesota, and that possibly includes both the Dakotas also. Bernadine Jocelyn, who's the creator of this series, what I call the Mother Confessor and the Heart of the Process, who will introduce our distinguished panelists and moderate the program. So, Bernadine.
Oh my goodness, Todd. Thank you so much for that fulsome introduction. You set a high bar for me to live up to. I am so happy to be here tonight and to join Steve and Todd in welcoming each of you for being here tonight. We're going to, as Steve said, we have three very dynamic leaders to hear about their success in forging big roles on the world stage right here in Minnesota. As Todd said, I am Jocelyn, and I'm going to be moderating the program tonight on behalf of East-West Connections. As a Minnesota-based not-for-profit, East-West Connections is dedicated to fostering citizen diplomacy and connections between the people of Minnesota and the world. And as Todd said, this is the third in our series on Minnesota's international influence. This series explores Minnesota's outsized international reach and shines a light on the history, breadth, and value of Minnesota's unique international connections and global impact. We believe that strengthening connections can be a durable and sustainable path to peace and understanding among nations. To learn more about us, find recordings of our programs, including this one, please visit our website. We were inspired to host tonight's webinar by the important role that trade and plays in creating opportunity and quality of life for everybody in Minnesota. Any examination of Minnesota's global ties has to touch on the realm of business and trade. To help set the stage, I want to say just a few words of context about the role that international trade plays in Minnesota's global connections. With more than 96% of the world's population and 75% of its purchasing power outside the United States, economic prosperity, jobs, and the future growth for Minnesota and America will absolutely depend on international trade and investment. We have lots of evidence of the benefits of international trade to jobs and the economy here in Minnesota. In 2019, which was the most recent data that I could find, 1 in 5 Minnesota jobs, nearly 750,000 jobs, depend on international trade. And these jobs are at large and small companies, on farms and factories, and at the headquarters of Minnesota's globally engaged firms. And they're good paying jobs, offering about 16% more than jobs in non-export industries. And what's more, exporting manufacturers increase employment 2 to 4% faster annually than manufacturers that do not export. And they're less likely to go out of business. Last year, Minnesota, here in our state, we exported over $23 billion in goods and services to 211 foreign markets, which was a 17% increase compared to 2020, with Canada, Mexico, and China among our top export destinations. Since 2009, Minnesota's exports have grown nearly 20% faster than our overall GDP. As the Minnesota Trade Office explained to the press in an interview recently announcing the governor's annual international trade awardees, he said, "Our exporting businesses show that Minnesota is the place that builds and sells solutions that the rest of the world needs to solve the globe's problems." I think Minnesota is well positioned to improve the success of our businesses even more. We boast a diverse economy, strong agricultural products. We have amazing manufacturing sector and services, and phenomenal educational achievement. Well, very well educated population in our state. And also because of the smart investments that our state has made to ensure that all Minnesota communities have the internet access they need to participate in the global economy, every Minnesota-based business with a solid internet connection has a front door to international commerce. I'm sure Lane can tell us how in Little Harmony, Minnesota, they couldn't be doing their business without good internet. And as a state, we can be proud that we've made those necessary investments to make that possible. And the other thing is Minnesota businesses have benefited from public investments that promote and facilitate international trade. I think it's important for us as citizens and taxpayers and voters to understand the important role that public investment, public policy plays in supporting these amazing entrepreneurs we're about to hear from. In the past 10 years, for example, the U.S. Export-Import Bank financed over $1 billion in exports from 128 Minnesota companies. And since 1992, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency has facilitated nearly $500 million in exports from our company. And the trade office at Deed that Steve talked about, where we were so fortunate to have him as a public servant for many years, They provide all kinds of grants to expand exporting operations, technical assistance and training and education. And they also maintain overseas offices to help promote and advertise Minnesota's products. So I hope one of the outcomes of tonight's session is that people will feel encouraged about the importance and the support of us in the state for international trade. But I think besides all those investments and other enabling conditions we are proud of in Minnesota, of course, the most important ingredient to the success that we're here to talk about tonight is leadership. Each of these companies, as Steve said, has a story to tell about how they found themselves on the world stage, and we're going to dig in there tonight. We've asked each of our panelists tonight to tell the origin story of their global connections, to reflect on what's helped and hindered their participation in the global marketplace, and to reflect a little bit on the difference that has made to be globally connected for their businesses and their communities. We're going to hear from each of them in turn, and then we'll have a discussion with the questions that you share with us in the box there. We are recording the webinar, and it'll be available for viewing and sharing later on our website. And you'll also find there on the website fuller bios of our presenters and a little more information about each of their companies. So please do use that Q&A box to share any reflections or questions, and we'll collect them along the way. So let's get started. We're going to start off tonight with Lane Powell. Lane is the new business manager at Harmony Enterprises, which is an environmental solutions company in Harmony, Minnesota, as Steve said, just a stone's throw from the Iowa border. And I don't mean to steal your thunder, Lane, but I have here a note of how many businesses. It's more than 85, isn't it?
Yes,
My
ma'am.
notes say over 90 countries. And I said there's 112 that we trade with as a state. So they're hitting almost all the buttons there. Harmony has been named a family-owned manufacturer of the year by Minnesota St. Paul Business Journal and a top Minnesota-based manufacturing company. And most of all, they're a corporate member of Global Minnesota. So thanks again, Lane, for being here, and take it away.
Thanks, Bernadine. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it, the right one. Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you all for the opportunity to participate tonight and tell our story about who Harmony is, how we entered the global marketplace, and how being a worldwide company continues to shape the way we do business. One of the first questions we were asked was, how did our business get started and why in Minnesota? Harmony Enterprises was founded in 1962 in our rural southeast Minnesota community of Harmony. It was created as a way to provide employment to people in areas outside of the agricultural sector. 4 prominent local businessmen had a vision for creating the ways to keep families in our small community and for potentially attracting more talent to our area. Since that time, the company has always maintained that original core focus of career, community, culture, and company. While our manufactured products have changed drastically over the years, we've continued to provide these same types of employment opportunities. And so here's a look back at our product mix and how it has changed to meet market demand over time. You can see on the left there, it started with our bikini cane chair, moved into things like portable ice fishing shelters, boating booths, and finally included camper and van pop-up tops and awnings. Then in 1971, an incineration ban in grocery stores prompted an Iowa-based supermarket to contact us about our ability to maybe engineer, design, and make a cardboard baler for them. That first product test proved to be very successful, and Harmony started diversifying its product line into the recycling balers and compactors through the early and mid-'80s all the way through the '90s. The camper division responsible for all of the canvas products was then finally sold in 2010. Harmony is a 4th-generation family-owned business and is currently the 3rd largest manufacturer of waste and recycling equipment in the U.S. We offer the widest range of over 40 baler and compactor solutions on the market. These include products such as our small customer-facing trash compactors that you might see in airports, restaurants, and shopping malls. And if you've flown through Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, you've seen about 256 of these, certain compactors at the gates and such, all the way up to our full product destruction balers that can perforate, drain, and bale up to 25,000 cans or bottles of full out-of-spec product at one time. We employ 75 employees with both our production facility and office spaces in one building here in Harmony, Minnesota, and a childcare center that serves our company and the greater community adjacent to our shipping area. So if you look at this aerial photo, that's the building on the left there is the childcare center. Approximately 75% of our B2B business is domestic based, and about 25% today is global. So the question came, how did your global connections develop and why? How did Harmony get in the global marketplace? How do we make the leap? Harmony's first experience with international business started in the late 1980s when now CEO Steve Kramer made multiple visits to Asia to learn about the markets there. Following his participation in a Taiwanese trade show in 1989, Harmony received a fax, although written in English, from a Taiwanese company that had seen both our booth and products at the show and wanted to order a recycling baler like they had seen. With lots of help from the Minnesota Trade Office, the sale was a success and the customer continued to buy products from Harmony over the years. Following that, Steve participated in several trade missions to India and other countries in conjunction with the Minnesota Trade Office. And I believe Steve Riedel and Steve Kramer both did some of those together. In the late 2000s, Steve Kramer made a connection and built a relationship with C-Press, a company in Toulouse, France, which dealt with sustainability, sales, and technical organizations, and it was founded in 1997. Harmony acquired it in 2011 and still operates it today with an average staff of 10 to 12 people. So what is the nature of our international connections? As Bernadine said, we serve over 90 countries worldwide. We need to add a couple to this map. On every continent except Antarctica, our subsidiary office in Toulouse provides both sales and service in France, Europe, and North Africa. Harmony Europe does a great deal of service work in France and the European continent due to the more strict regulations required for scheduled equipment maintenance. In France, they call it the VGP, used to be quarterly equipment maintenance. Harmony Europe does distribute equipment from several providers on the continent, as well as Harmony Enterprises from the United States. We've had several meaningful joint ventures with Harmony Europe over the years, including our sales of our liquid extraction balers to all kinds of different market verticals there, and our Smart Pack automatic compactors that have smart embedded IoT technology in them. And a great example of this partnership is what you're seeing on the screen here, our experience as the trash compactor provider for several consecutive years at the French Open tournament. We created systems there that gave their janitorial staff real-time dashboards in the locker rooms to know when trash compactors needed to be emptied or serviced, saving them nearly 70% on labor and accessories managing customer-facing waste during the whole duration of the 3-week event. And we collaborated with another Minnesota company, New Boundary Technologies, up in the cities to help us create this type of dashboard for them. More recently, Harmony's been active in Central and South America, where recycling startups are creating hubs in more rural areas. That makes it much more cost-effective for people to deposit their recyclables, to be baled there, and then transported to urban areas that have larger depots for processing. Some of these countries include Panama, Honduras, Chile, Jamaica, and Mexico, just to name a few. Much of this has stemmed from the Basel Convention, which is focused on global reduction of plastic waste. Our machines that cyclers in these countries desire range from large automatic conveyor-fed vertical and horizontal system balers in larger cities, all the way to smaller 30-inch balers in remote areas, again, that create these more manageable bales to transport to larger centers to be broken down and remade into more desirable mill-sized bales for recyclers. The main commodity in these areas is PET bottles. We also partnered with groups like ResaFast in Chile, who have a great story. They use our liquid extraction balers to dispose of full cans and bottles and have created a pump and drain system that takes that residual liquid to a sophisticated filtration system where it breaks it down into parts of potable water. That water is then transported and used in other needed areas like irrigation and other processes. So what has helped or hindered our participation in the global marketplace? Well, certainly things that have helped our participation in the global marketplace include our association and a long-term partnership with groups like the Minnesota Trade Office and more recently, Global Minnesota. Harmony very much values the ability to learn from the expertise of others with experience in global business and cultural connections. And I'm going to put in a shameless plug, and it's a good time to do it for Global Minnesota. If you're not a corporate member and you're on this webinar, you may want to consider becoming one. The benefits are invaluable. Our market niche of waste and recycling has always been helpful to us on the global stage, especially in those emerging markets like Central America. Our wide range of solutions has allowed us to compete in many diverse verticals, from airports to restaurants to recycling centers, hospitals, sporting venues, and much more, all these things that are popping up in these markets. We are not limited or pigeonholed into one type of business that we can market to. And as a marketing person, that's very exciting. The implementation of data-driven solutions has also positioned us ahead of other companies and met the needs of our global customers. Many of those customers, especially those on the European continent, specifically Eastern Europe, value IoT solutions as part of their waste and recycling operations. Harmony benefits from the use of global vendors, such as Allen Bradley. We use their PLCs like in this Baylor electrical panel here, that can get us parts and technical support, usually same day, in most areas of the world. Some things that have hindered our participation in the global marketplace include our own geographic location, especially related to things like shipping and freight costs. It would be much more cost effective for us if our production facility was located near a shipping port. As we sell more across the globe and expand our geographical reach, we're in constant need of additional service technicians. We're looking to train these technicians outside of the US and help them to be knowledgeable and experienced with our own equipment. Language and culture barriers make training difficult. Also, the ability to complete necessary site reviews and have boots on the ground or be given correct information needed for the delivery and install of our equipment abroad can be challenging, not only due to logistics in remote locations, but also the conversion of numeric and mathematical and currency things so that they're accurate. What's made a difference? What difference has it made to Minnesota and our community to be globally connected? Being globally connected has made a world of difference to our business and community, and that pun is intended. It's made a world of difference for us. It has helped us really to build our brand as a growing company over the course of the last 50 to 60 years. It has helped us to reaffirm that sustainability is a global problem that requires global solutions. Being globally connected has helped us to infuse our own local small economy with more dollars that are spent right here in our own community, while providing employment opportunities to people who might not otherwise have it, which was one of our core focuses when we started this presentation. And being globally connected continues to put Minnesota at the front of states that seek opportunities for growth, partnership, mutual benefit with citizens all around the world. And most importantly for us, our participation in the global economy is helping make the earth a more sustainable place for generations to come. I'm going to share our contact information with you. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments at any time, you can reach me on my email there or look us up at www.harmony1.com or drop us a line on the phone. There's always a human being here to answer it for you. Thanks again for the opportunity to share our global story with you tonight. We appreciate it very much.
Lane, thank you so much. That was amazing. So interesting. And I'm already on my way to Harmony. I told Lane before we began that I'm really inspired by your community facing mission. So thank you very much for sharing that story. We're going to hear next from Kent Lee, And Kent is the co-founder and president CEO of Eastview Companies of Minneapolis, which he launched with his partner in 1898. No, 1998. 1989. There we go. There we go.
No,
Kent is Kent's a graduate of Columbia's University School of International and Public Affairs, as am I, which is kind of fun for us. And he has an ABD in political science from Columbia's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And also, like me, Kent is a graduate of our own University of Minnesota, where he has an undergraduate degree. Last fall, and I mentioned there's more information on each of these companies on our website, but last fall, Eastview Companies was recognized with the Governor's International Trade Award, which called out their exceptional progress and success in exports to foreign markets. And as Steve said, they have a fascinating story and mission. And Ken, thank you so much for being here tonight. Over to you.
already. Well, thank you very much, Bernadine, and thanks, Todd. Thanks also, Steve. It's been a pleasure to be invited to speak and take part with other Minnesota companies in the East-West Connections Forum. So a little bit about our background and our organization. The Eastview companies are, I'm gonna try to share a screen here and see if this works here. Does, no, I think, no, it's not working here. So you're gonna have to look at me here. So already, well, the Eastview companies are a group of several highly integrated companies employing about 200 people.
Oh, so sorry, Kent. Go
Yes.
ahead. Try to share your slides.
I'm not sure that I can do it from my location here. If you've got a copy of the slide deck, you could maybe do it here, but I don't think I'm able to do it here.
Just give it one more try, Kent. If it doesn't work, we'll just move on.
Okay, let's see. I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. I'm dialing in from Canada. It could be, but it's probably my own technical limitations here. So, all right. That's kind of the best I can. That's the best I can do right now.
Okay.
In any event, we've got our headquarters here in Minnesota, as well as a large warehouse, distribution, and library preservation operation. Outside, we have major offices in the countries of the former Soviet Union, as well as key people in China, Germany, and elsewhere. Collectively, we're in the information and publishing business. This means newspapers, journals, books, maps, and a variety of specialty publications in both digital and print formats. And it means a lot of associated services like database creation, digitization, original publishing, cataloging and technical services for libraries, and even custom cartography. It also means a lot of engagement with AI and machine learning, including putting together large language models. In general, we're a business-to-business organization with a lot of work for audiences in government, academia, and in some corporate verticals. Most of what we do is not in the English language. 30 plus years ago, we connected Moscow and Washington via leased lines running through a small office building in Plymouth, Minnesota. This was the very early days of the internet. We supplied the latest and most interesting independent newspapers coming from many newly independent countries experiencing freedom of the press for the first time. The same basic architecture exists today, but now there's terabytes and terabytes of specialty information from China, from Russia, from so many diverse places, flowing in and out from the outside world through skilled Minnesotan hands and onwards to our customers. We help policymakers, we help researchers, and we help a lot of really interesting content providers from around the world make some good money. In the middle of this, a lot of Minnesotans doing very innovative and rewarding things. We're blessed, and each year we've managed to get a little bit larger. Eastview is a great place to work, and people tend to stay a long time. I've been asked by the presenters to address some Minnesota-related questions, such as, how did our businesses get started and why Minnesota? Or what is the nature of our international connections? How do they develop and why? And how has Minnesota helped or hindered our participation? The first is easy. Why Minnesota? Speaking as one of Eastview's founders, I was originally from Minnesota, and I got my international inspiration from my time at the University of Minnesota. I think Minnesota has the world's greatest teachers from elementary school to college, and even beyond. I'm still a student even now with the world's greatest teachers of Chinese language. Her name is Margaret Wong. One teacher of mine at the University of Minnesota, Eric Markuson, was particularly influential, and he helped guide me towards learning about the quote unquote enemy of the time, the Soviet Union, and very importantly, learning the Russian language. Without this basic foundation, I could not have taken this path. So I give huge credit and still do to the teachers of Minnesota. I went to grad school in New York City, and while that was where the Eastview businesses were initially founded, actually co-founded in both New York City and in Moscow, my wife at the time longed to return with our growing family to Minnesota, which is what we did. In a sense, this was hard, since at the time, all of our first customers were anywhere but in Minnesota. But we established roots here, and slowly but surely the company began to grow. While many of our employees were born in Minnesota, a lot of people have come here from other places around the world to work in Minnesota. My co-founding partner, Dima Frangolov, and his family moved here from the Soviet Union. As a rule, people who come here have stayed. In fact, I'd say that well over 100 people, the vast majority of them highly educated, have come from around the world and stayed in Minnesota, associated with the Eastview companies, multiple generations, in fact. I'm hugely proud of these folks, and I think that this may be the single most influential and meaningful thing that Eastview companies have been associated with here. A few words on the nature of our international connections and what we actually do. As I briefly mentioned above, we're in the information and publishing business. Basically, we buy and sell information, we acquire and distribute information. We always try to add some value or services to what we do. It's essential to have some kind of edge that keeps us relevant and on top of the ever-changing nature of information technology. But let me talk about a couple specifics. First, our print business with books and journals, and second, our database business, and third, our map and geospatial data business. With books and journals, we've developed a rather sophisticated international supply network, which is digitally coordinated from our Minnesota headquarters. Not all the books pass through Minnesota, but all the business does. We coordinate supplies with over 50 countries, all former Soviet countries, all Eastern European countries, and numerous countries of the Far East, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Dozens of languages are involved. Our customers, some of whom are in fact in Minnesota, like the University of Minnesota, McAllister, Hamlin, and down in Northfield, and so on, are the world's leading research centers in academia and in major public libraries. This kind of book and journal business is highly specialized and requires intimacy with both suppliers and customers. It's not the same as ordering a book on Amazon, although it's also true that Amazon both keeps us on our toes and gives us an important channel to various markets. Our database business is probably the largest activity, since nearly all information types are digital in one way or another, and the expectation of most customers is some kind of digital access. We're especially deeply involved with newspapers, both current and historical ones, and of course in all languages here. Two of our most popular newspaper databases are the complete digital archive of the famous Soviet newspaper Pravda, as well as the world's largest and most influential Arabic language newspaper, Al-Akram in Egypt. The database business is extremely dynamic, not just with technology and customer expectations, but also with business models, including open access, where people do not need to pay to get access to content. We have millions of pages in such open access databases. The key, of course, is trying to get someone to pay for all this work, since digital information does not just magically create itself or stay safely organized and available 24/7, 365 for free. With maps and geospatial data, well, this sector is one of my favorite aspects of our business. It's deeply international, since we started out with product lines based on the massive worldwide creations of the Soviet military. During the Cold War, the Soviets created not only more maps, but arguably the best quality topographic maps on the planet, even of Twin Cities and Duluth. They're both historically fascinating and still useful in numerous ways. But long story short, our global activity with Soviet military mapping exposed us to hundreds of local publishers around the world as we sought to stay on top of a global geospatial phenomenon. We continue to do a lot of work in this area, and as the map and geospatial and as the map and geodata business have changed, we've stayed strong in both print maps and digital ones. At this point, our print map distribution business is easily the largest in the USA, and Minnesota is a great and centralized location from this to happen from. So it's really facilitated our development here. That's a quick overview of the Eastview companies. My apologies to some of our employees who might be listening. I can't mention everything here. In summary, even though I'm not a tech person, as you can see, I couldn't share my screen very effectively. We are a tech company, and we have a great combination of technical, linguistic, cultural, and business expertise here. I think it's a very Minnesotan thing. We do our work quietly, maybe even a little bit too quietly, but it works for us and our business model. And I think it kind of suits a low-key Minnesota style. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to try to answer them when the time comes. Thanks, everyone. And thanks again, Bernadine and Todd and Steve.
Kent, that was terrific. Thank you so much. And we can share the slides on the website later. I'm sure that you captured the substance of it, but we'll be able to share that later. And what a story, this beginning with the facts, to AI. I mean, that your company has been able to scramble and keep on top of that is really an impressive story. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
We're going to turn now to our third presenter, and I'm just really delighted tonight to be joined by John Schleiter, who serves as the General Counsel and Vice President for Legal and Business Affairs for Uponor North America in Apple Valley. And there, John leads efforts to open restricted global markets, and he provides guidance to boards of directors, both domestically and abroad for the company. And like Eastview companies, Uponor also has been recognized with the Governor's International Trade Award, which it received in 2019. John has had a long career over several decades, and he has assisted, he told us, more than 30 foreign companies enter the United States market and thrive here. John, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing more from you about your company.
Thank you so much, Bernadine, for the kind words and introductions. And just want to make sure a sound check and a video check, make sure you can see my screen here. Thumbs up. Perfect. I apologize. I noticed I'm actually on the West Coast in California, and the sun just set, and all you can see is my face because I'm wearing a black shirt. But I apologize for the background effects here. But again, thank you for the opportunity.
You look very exotic. It's all good, John. Thanks for being with us from the West Coast. What we're seeing is we're not seeing the actual presentation, just your kind of list.
My inbox or my list there. Okay, don't read what's there. That's all super duper confidential information.
I'm sure.
Let me make sure that what the heck is that?
Here it is. Yep, click on there. There you go. That looks like it's got a name on it.
Is that any better?
I think you have to stop sharing and then pull it up and then share. I think you have to have it on your desktop before you share your screen. Try that.
Perfect. My apologies.
No worries. It's all good. We're all friends here. And Kent sent a good example of being technologically challenged. So he eased the way. There we go. Now we're seeing it. Just put it to full screen and you'll be good. There you go.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to this. Both East West and Global Minnesota have been significant enablers to Uponor's business over the past several years, and just truly a symbiotic relationship. If you look at the benefits that we get from working with Bernadette and her colleagues and her team that is on the call today, and hopefully the support that we in turn provide to you. One of such things is having the opportunity to talk a little bit about today about why Minnesota and why is Minnesota so important to Uponor. and why is what is the benefits of doing business in Minnesota from a global perspective. And this sums it up. But Uponor is a global company with a local presence in Minnesota. This is our facility, our campus over in Apple Valley, which for those of you that are not familiar with the Twin Cities is about 15 minutes south of the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. I'll provide a little bit more color and background with respect to our North American operations in the next slide. But we are a Finnish-based company. We have Finnish roots with 4,000 staff and folks worldwide. We do about $1.5, $1.6 billion annual turnover worldwide, and we operate in approximately 78 countries. For those of you that have never been to Helsinki, it's the furthest northernmost populated city in the world. There are folks that live north of Helsinki, but not a heck of a lot of them. So Helsinki is very far northern territory. It's the country in which our product that we sell today was invented and serves as the roots for our operation up until, I'll go back to the next slide in a moment. But with respect to North America, this is a map of our North American operations. And as you can see, there's very heavy presence in Minnesota. Matter of fact, our only presence in the United States is in Minnesota, and that's the locations out of which we operate our approximately $500 million business. We have 1,000 people employed in North America, the majority of those being in the state of Minnesota. And our locations are in Apple Valley, which is our main offices in manufacturing. Our distribution center is over in Lakeville. And then in the past 5 years, we expanded to Hutchinson, where we set up a parallel manufacturing facility to enable us to diversify our manufacturing facility and also employee base. Our Canadian operations are based from east to west, first in Ontario and then westward over to Alberta and Calgary. So we're able to cover Canada pretty effectively based on our two operations. We manufacture 1/3 of the PEX pipe sold in North America. What the heck is PEX pipe? I'll show it to you right here. PEX pipe is cross-linked polyethylene. It should be EXP or XPE for cross-linked polyethylene. It's basically plastic tubing. And that plastic tubing is used in several different operations, both in commercial and residential settings. We use it for potable water, plumbing applications, fire safety, radiant heating and cooling. It goes in the ground to heat and cool your ambient space. Hydronic distribution, which is commercial operations. And then lastly, energy transportation. If you take a look at PEX pipe, again, it is a product that when it is expanded, the polyethylene has a memory by which it is always looking to go back to its native form. So the pipe is connected to fixtures by expansion of the plastic pipe, at which time a fitting is inserted, and within a matter of seconds, that fitting is unable to be removed from the pipe. In fact, if you were to test the pipe and try to remove that fitting from the pipe would fail. It would rip before that fitting comes out. So unfortunately, that pipe lives a pretty brutal existence of trying to get back to its native original form, but an existence that has found itself as to be very, very beneficial to provide leak-free operations and service for plumbing systems and heating systems throughout North America. In fact, over 60% of all single-family homes in the United States have our product in them. 60%, which is a heck of a lot of pipe. We manufacture billions of feet of pipe out of that Apple Valley facility, and it's something which the expansion is something that we're very proud of. Going back to this screen, the reason I'm in Irvine is Irvine happens to be the home base for a Swiss-based company by the name of George Fisher. And their home office is in the US, is located here in Irvine. And George Fisher acquired Uponor in November of 2023. So now our Minnesota roots have gotten even, our Minnesota-based company has an even wider breadth and scope for our operations. So it used to be the 78 different countries that we operated in. In fact, here we have 78 different countries that we sold product in. We have 34 countries now in which we have operations, 15,000 people worldwide. And the epicenter of the North American manufacturing for this new North American arm of George Fisher will be right here in Minneapolis, in Apple Valley. So we're super proud of the team here in Apple Valley to be able to further showcase the state of Minnesota on a global level with a company wherein our combined turnover will be over $6 billion annually. Taking a little bit back, a step back at our history, if you take a look at the history of PEX, now the Uponor as a company goes back approximately 200 years. PEX was invented in about 1968 by a fellow by the name of Thomas Engel, and he had no idea that he would be selling pipe to or manufacturing pipe that would go into single family homes. He was trying to keep chickens warm so they could lay more eggs. And so he came up with a way of trying to make pipe to transport some warm waters to spur the chickens to make more eggs. And a company by the name of Wiersbo out of Switzerland, or Sweden rather, got their hands on this technology and said to Mr. Engel, hey, we'd really like to buy your technology and use it for making pipes to primarily provide for heating in the Nordics. And Wiersbo opened its first facility in Europe in approximately 1970. Very shortly thereafter, in 1984, they expanded their operations to the United States just through a distribution facility in Rockford, Illinois. But then was acquired by Uponor, again, a company with several hundred years of heritage. And Uponor, with its Nordic roots, liked Lakeville. They liked Lakeville, Minnesota, because of the parallels to the Scandinavian heritage that the state of Minnesota offered. And therein is the reason why this global company picked Minnesota. And now the rest is history with respect to the expansion of Uponor throughout the years in the state of Minnesota. So what has helped and hindered? I wanted to take a minute to talk about Minnesota. You know, we all kind of pick, if you're an entrepreneur, you pick a state for your operation. Maybe it's where you live. And I would say that in Uponor's instance, selecting Minnesota was very intentional. And it was very intentional, not only because of the Finnish heritage, but also because of the very highly educated workforce. Minnesota offers one of the most highly educated workforces in the country, right? And it offers a very nice cost of living and a very, very healthy lifestyle outside the office. I actually office out of Chicago most of the year, and I can tell you that from a health and wellness standpoint, my time in Minnesota is far better than my time in Chicago, and the dollar certainly goes farther. So it's a good quality of life to live and to work and to play. It wouldn't be fair to also not comment on certain of the drawbacks. And I think for some of us that own businesses or operate in Minnesota, we understand there's a very, very tight labor force. And it's because of this good quality of life, right? That folks want to have companies here. So it's a very tight labor force, and diversity, and of course DE&I is at the very heart and core of Uponor worldwide, not just here in Minneapolis. And advancing our DE&I initiative is also very challenging, as the state it tends to be not as diverse as certain other locations. So those are the two of the drawbacks. But again, continue to leverage the positives as to what Minnesota offers for us as a workforce, as far as the state as a whole. So going back to the slide, I selected these photos on purpose to talk about a little bit about why Minnesota has been a good business partner for Uponor. We are involved with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, our local city chambers. We're also a member of the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce. And for those of you that work for multinational based companies, the foreign country many times has a chamber of commerce based in your home state. And in fact, the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce has a branch right here in the Twin Cities. And by working closely with these governmental entities and independent industry functions, we find that they definitely want your business to be successful, and they want to be enablers for you. And Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, has offered those opportunities for us. We've also been given the opportunity to host public officials for visits. We have actually had to decline certain visit requests from certain folks on a very high executive level on the national stage. Uponor gets a lot of attention, being one of the largest Finnish-based employers in the United States, and certainly being in the Twin Cities draws a lot of attention to us. So we get a lot of folks that want to come and visit with us. But we have hosted, of course, the local city council members. Governor Walz is very familiar with our facilities. State Rep Robert Bierman, Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach, and Senator Klobuchar are all folks that have been within the hallowed walls of Uponor many, many, many times. And we have been able to take advantage of programs that they've offered. In turn, for example, we've received a grant most recently from the Minnesota Investment Fund and the Job Creation Fund. So what happens is you offer your time and your services and your support to these governmental and local officials, and in turn, they have visibility to you and the good things that you're doing and the initiatives that you're advancing, and are able to provide you with visibility to various grants and job creation funds. And in fact, one of the most recent examples of that was when we expanded to Hutchinson in 2018. We would not have been able to do so without our state and local support, support from our state and local representatives, both from a financial perspective as well as from the ability to be able to develop that facility as a whole. So both locally here in Apple Valley and then in the Twin Cities and more broadly, the state of Minnesota has been a supporter of Uponor for many, many years and enabled and fostered our growth. So one of the things that we also do is we didn't just come over here and Finland planted a seed in Lakeville, Minnesota, and just abandon it. And they fostered that seed and germinated it, and we were thankful for that. And in fact, we wanted to provide exposure beyond Minnesota for Uponor. And I wanted to talk for a moment on the importance for Minnesota to have global connections. And when we look at the global connections that Uponor has been afforded over the years, it provides an opportunity for multinational work experience for our employees. One of the things that we always try to do here at Uponor is provide an opportunity for certain of our team members to go and work on a global scale, whether they be our human resources team members or our finance team members or our legal team members have the opportunity to work in Germany or Finland or Switzerland or Denmark. And in turn, our European colleagues have the opportunity to come and work in our offices here in Minnesota. And that gives us the opportunity to leverage resources to foster contacts both here in the United States as well as abroad. The other opportunities that we have is we have been given the opportunity to travel to Finland with delegates from Minnesota, including Governor Walz. In 2021, I think that was. And in turn, we have hosted Finnish delegates here in the United States. And I did want to take a moment to comment on the most recent visit that we did. And this was in a partnership with Global Minnesota. And at the introduction, it was mentioned that we had the opportunity to have Ambassador Mikko Hautala, who is the ambassador of Finland, visit our facility in May of 2023 with a delegation organized, a delegation of several business leaders from Finland. And as a result of that visit, now briefly, Mr. Hautala, the Finnish ambassador, was very instrumental in negotiating the NATO treaty, Finland's entry into NATO. And in fact, was with President Biden at the time of the signing and execution of NATO's admission of Finland. So this is truly somebody who operates on a world stage. And while Mr. Hautala was with us, he said, what can I do to help you? And we said, we're really trying to expand our market into the state of New York. It's a restricted market for us. Our product is not in the code. And over the course of the past, now that's been since May, so less than a year, we were invited to the residences of the local representatives of the Finnish ambassador in New York, who hosted for us a reception and introduced us with business leaders, both on the state and the local level in New York, which has enabled us to make more progress on our entry into New York in the past 10 months than has been done in the past 20 years. And this all stemmed from a reception here in Minnesota by the ambassador. So through our global connections, we're able to expand our businesses on a national stage here in the United States. So in some, locally, their contacts here in Minnesota enable us to expand our businesses here in the state, and then the contacts on a more global level have enabled us to expand our business not only in the United States, but also provide opportunities for our colleagues multinationally. So I appreciate your time listening today. And again, as with the other two presenters, welcome any questions at the end here, Bernadine, that folks may have.
John, thank you so much. That was really interesting for me as a taxpayer and a citizen of a state, and I'm a big booster, Minnesota, everywhere I go, to hear the important role that the state and organizations like Global Minnesota here have played in Uponor's progress. And I loved how you summed it up, that they liked Lakeview. So that's why they came here. It's personal relationships really do make a big difference, don't they? Well, I wanted to thank those of you who put questions in the chat. I am going to, Kent, just throw out to you a very interesting question that came in from our good friend, Natalia Kurolova, who took note of that you mentioned that the Soviet government had made really good maps of Duluth, among other places, and was curious why the Soviets were interested in Duluth.
Oh, it wasn't it wasn't just Duluth. It was all the major cities of the United States, and actually over 2,000 cities around the world. So they weren't just picking on Duluth. Okay.
Well, with that, I see that the bell has rung and it's 8 o'clock. So it's my duty to turn it back over to our fearless leader, Todd, who's going to give some final words of wisdom and thanks to everybody. But let me just take a moment and thank each of you, John, Lane, and Kent. It was terrific. You guys were terrific. Thank you so much. Thanks to our audience for joining us today. And Todd, take us on home.
What's interesting is watching the variety of firms and the types of firms that have access to international markets. And the idea of everything from information to the idea of plastic plumbing to the idea of recycling concepts, in some ways are absolutely different, and in many ways are unbelievably alike. With the idea of a focus upon technology, information, science, and with a base of public-private relationships and the concept of education and the kinds of services that are required for this. And, and the thing that strikes me on this, when I listen to this, because I have great admiration for all these companies, is the kind of potential. Not only is it a reflection of a number of individual decisions and a number of choices that others have made, thank God, that had a broader view, but the idea, the potential it has for Minnesota. because there are hundreds of companies in Minnesota that are and can become even greater global citizens with a global market, which is there. As Bernadine mentioned, roughly 4% of the world market is Minnesota, is the United States, and the other 96 is the world. That's the future for all of us. And one of the things that frustrates me many times is the idea that we don't see what the potential is, because Minnesota has practically every element of water, health, communications, transportation, financing, the idea of mining, the idea of tourism, the idea of science, education, that provide a base for us to become the model for the rest of the world. If we're smart enough and have the leadership to do this on a broader base, and it's something I worry about. So thank you for John, Lane, and Kent, and Bernadine, and Catherine, and Sophia, and to our co-sponsors, the Global Minnesota, the idea, the Museum of Russian Art, the Russian Department of McAllister College in Zerkalo, and especially thanks to all of you that tuned in. This has been recorded. It will be put on social media for ourselves and our co-sponsors. That what we've discovered is that the numbers who tune in are relatively small relative to the number of people who see programs later. The nature of information, and I could have Kent go on for 3 hours on this, the nature of information has changed all relationships. And so with that, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in tonight. And I'd like to thank everybody for the interest, and we'll be announcing our future programs in the very short period, and we will continue. And so thank you very much for tuning in and for the idea of the excellent program which happened tonight, and especially my triple thanks to Bernadine. So, as we say, spasibo большое. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody. Good night, and do well. Thank you. Bye.